This episode is about minutes 51 through 55 of Solo, a Star Wars story, with returning guests, Triad of the Force. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Xanthe, you can call me Xanthe, and today is all about minutes 51 through 55 of Solo, a Star Wars story, which starts with Han convincing Dryden to give them another chance, and ends with Han challenging Lando to a game of Sabacc/Sabacc. I'm excited to have Nani, Gus, and Mo back on the show to discuss these minutes. Hello.
Hello. I'm so excited to be back.
I'm excited to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
So
having us back.
it's always good to return and be amongst friends talking about cool stuff.
Absolutely. And first of all, what is it about these minutes that stands out to you the most?
At least to me, not to talk over anybody, but for me it was the variety of different things that were happening through the minutes. I think that's the cool thing about doing it this way. You kind of never know what to expect or like what overlap between scenes you're kind of getting. So having that change from being in Dryden's office and having like all these mysterious and ominous undertones of the music as like Dryden's being threatening, and then with Kira's like more melodic, romantic, more delicate music undertones, and then shifting into wherever that planet is that Lando is hosting his poker/Sabacc game, and getting all those different sounds with the droid battles going on, and then the music underneath it. So it's a nice smorgasbord, so to speak. So I thought that was the cool thing. Like, how do we transition from these two wildly different scenes? So that's what I appreciate personally.
Nani?
Well, I think it's really different from the last episode we did with you. We were talking about A New Hope last time, and that clip had no music at all until the very end. So it was more focusing on all of those noises and the noises of the Millennium Falcon and the characters and the lightsaber and all those just amazing just sounds and how they're created. But this one had music almost all throughout it. It was maybe in one scene towards the end that it's no music, but there's usually just background, and it sets the tone so well. All the shifting of the tones, like Goose was saying, like when it's with Kira, there's like more that romantic side to it. When they're heading out, it's just like that, oh, we're going on an adventure sound, and the hopeful and the it's just really good. It really drags you into what's happening in the scene.
Yeah, you're right. It's so different because last time we almost had no music.
Yeah.
Mo?
I think two things like stand out to me. The first one is that I just like a feeling that there's something missing, especially in the transitions. It's almost like, and you can, especially if you're just focusing on the audio only, it's like there's like some missing scene in that transition that probably got cut off at some point. It's that was like my first impression. But then the other thing that stands up on this like minutes is like the banter. It's like we see all their characters like on point, like on their wits, and it's almost like it feels like almost like characteristic of what the characters are supposed to be saying. And in these scenes, like especially what you would expect from like Han trying to improvise, and then like you have like on the other side, Dryden trying to like intimidate them, but it's all under that facade of like, oh, we're friends, and then the same thing like happens with like that in Lando and like Han. It's like, oh, we're joking around, we're like, but really there's also like that undertone of like there's a conflict underneath it all. So I think that really stands out to me, like in those 5 minutes.
It's interesting that you say that. So why don't we get into it a little bit by listening to the beginning of these minutes? Sound good? Sweet.
Go for it.
Alliance with the pipes.
Right, and so nobody's gonna know we're working for you.
Pause there.
This scene, like that little violin thing, that gave me
Yeah.
so many vibes of Lord of the Rings. Like the intro, I don't know why. It was like the same chord or something from the beginning of Lord of the Rings when they're doing the intro to like the Legend of the Ring, like da, na, 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 na. Well, like they just transported me to that like little piece for some reason, which kind of obviously I don't think it was on purpose, but like it automatically for me, like the second I heard that chord, I was just like, boom, I'm in the Lord of the Rings immediately. But that's a super tangent here.
No,
But
it's not. I mean, see, I'm not like very familiar with Lord of the Rings, but that sort of gesture is familiar to me too, in a different way.
Mhm.
You mean
Pause.
That? Yep. That.
Yeah.
like
I hadn't picked up on
specifically
it
when it
originally, but
holds?
I think you're right, Goose.
Like if you listen to like especially like the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring when Galadriel's like
Yeah.
telling the history of Middle Earth and
Yeah.
they talk about the ring and Gollum getting the ring, like that's like the note that starts that little theme.
It is. It feels that way. It is.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on it on first listen, so good catching that there, Goose.
Well, I never picked it up originally because I never
Just
actively
now.
listened to the. Yeah, it's just
So-
like now listening to it actively, it's just like I'm trying to make all the connections to everything. So
So what function does it serve in Lord of the Rings?
at least to me, in Lord of the Rings, it's like to kind of establish like a mythical, historical, and fantastic setting of like this is an ancient thing with this magical device. This it's a recurring theme that comes along every time like the ring is talked about in that kind of mythical, powerful, ancient sense. So I don't know if that's like a one-to-one here in this circumstance. I just think that maybe the analogous thing would be more of the mystery of the proposal that they're doing, like or the danger or the hidden threat of what's going on in the scene, and maybe that's why it ties to that note. But that's how like I am forcing to interpret that connection because otherwise I wouldn't see like how they're connected because it's completely different framings. If that makes sense.
Okay, that does make sense. And the effect that it has for me, and I think it's actually quite similar, is the moment where that violin note sustains is when the scene like changes. Like it kind of provides this I don't know, it's like a high wire, almost like literally, where the scenery can change around it and it remains like the constant note upon which like new colors can imbue it with. I don't know if that makes any sense, but notice how the music is before it drops out and then how it carries over and then new music forms underneath. But still just like sustaining that one note is not enough to fully like build out like the musical character of the moment. It's when the other chords and the other parts come back in where it's sort of like the dawning realization of, oh, this is where we're going right now. So
In the alliance with the pipes.
Right, and so nobody's gonna know we're working for you.
right here.
Yep.
Pause.
That sustained note is like Han waiting for an answer. Like, and where the audience is on the edge of their seat.
Unless.
And already we've heard the Secrets theme. We've heard Young Han theme. This scene is fascinating to me because Dryden is a very, how do I put this? Like, he's really scary in a way that other because he is commanding of he commands the scene with this exterior that is like, I don't know, I don't want to say like Joker-esque. It's not Joker-esque. It's more like it's creepy because he can be so seemingly personable.
Right. He was
Or so,
charming about it.
yeah, he's charming for sure in a heavy-handed and menacing and manipulative way, but he'll still offer you a drink. He'll still go through these motions where you're just like, oh my, you're like, I guess I'm being dying. I mean, this is fine, right? But it's totally not fine, of course.
It's like the embodiment of like knowledge is power. Because like everything Dryden says, like it's imbued with what they already know. Like
That's so true.
And I think like that confidence in like, oh, I'm just here because I'm gaining up information, and you can sort of see it in like maybe the next few like seconds when he like says like, oh, you're arrogant and you're like hungry. And I feel like the choice of words was very specific, implying that he already knows there's that romantic connection going on between like Han and
Kira. Oh,
Kira.
I didn't even take it like that.
Point. Yeah, that's a good point because it feels in terms of like how like I'm seeing his framing based on what we're talking about, that he's kind of like one of those kind of toxic professors, right? When you're like in high school or college, that they're terrible to their students, but you kind of want their approval, and they are charming to you when they need to be to push you to do what you want them, but they want you to do. So you want to do it for them, but then they're like, but if I have to kill you or fail you or whatever, I guess that's
we are not condoning this kind of relationship, by the way. It's not good.
Exactly.
No.
It's
okay.
on you type of thing. And he's playing that up. It's just like, okay, well, I want you to crave my validation.
Approval.
That's why I'm gonna establishing this opportunity for you to come up with the plan. And then it's just like, oh well, it's your plan. So if you fail, it's your fault. Type of thing. So
that's so true.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God.
And there's always an undercurrent of threat under everything that he says. Even when he's being just super nice, you know he's threatening you at the same time. And you know, I love Paul Bettany's voice too, so it just adds so much to it. So
I didn't.
Well,
this is my first
with Kira, right? Because he does it with her too. When he
tells
her to go with him, right?
But Kira gets it. Like the way Kira responds to it is really. It's really interesting, and it is consistent. So like I do think it's like an acting choice, but like the way that she laughs so forcibly is just is chilling to me. Or she laughs with him, but it's more like a ha ha ha, like laughing at Han with him. Do you know what I mean? And later on when she says, "Of course," it's sort of like
right.
She's definitely aware of the tightrope that she's walking and what her situation is and what would happen if she goes one way or the other. So.
Yeah, I think that's
which is in par with her character, right? She's from the streets of Corellia, and she's had to learn to survive and all these things, and she's managed to rise up the ranks, and she knows that she's been able to do it because she's always had to watch her back, type of thing. So she knows she can't trust anybody, and even the people that she wants to trust are the people that she trusts the least to that extent. So that's why she's in that horrible position between Han and Dryden, because it's the two people that she would want to trust to some degrees, or that she does trust, but then she knows that if things were to play out in any other way, she's the one that's gonna get harmed from it potentially. So she's in a lose-lose situation with both of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like one of the most I feel for all of the characters in this equation, and I also kind of wish that we maybe got to experience more of the fear that they're feeling. Whereas I feel like they keep pushing forward to like the plan, and like that's great. I'm glad they're being proactive, but also like holy shit.
Right.
Yeah, like these people are in terrible situations. Explore that.
And I
Which,
think
I
that's
mean,
what's missing.
yeah.
That's the missing part. There's that, like, oh, you went from like your life is, being threatened to like all of a sudden like, oh, you're on the planet, and you're talking about Lando. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Feels like
Which
rushed, or like the part is missing or cut out.
which for me is the problem. I mean, I know we're here to talk about like the movie, right? And like this scene. I mean, not the movie, the music of the movie and this scene. But there's a fundamental problem with the movie, at least to me, which is what Mo was just talking about right now. At least to me, the movie has always felt like it's just rushing to get to Han's greatest hits instead of like focusing on like where he is at that time. And I thought that would have been a more interesting movie instead of being like, okay, well, he got the blaster, he got the jacket, he got the Millennium Falcon, and he got the Chewie, he got the girl, he lost the girl, and now he got the Falcon and
And now we're
did
caught
the
up.
and
Last
exactly.
week
So it's
on
just
Han
like so it's
Solo.
just like right. Exactly. It feels like a Netflix recap to an extent of like a season instead of like taking your time and just like figure out who these characters are. And I think it might have been more interesting to, like Mo was saying, it's like let's just pump the brakes a bit and see like how we get to the next thing instead of just like rushing to the
The adventure.
the boxes that we have to check. But that's I needed to get it out of my system because
It's all good.
but it's in the it's in the audio. Like you can, it's just like a jagged transition.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Mo. And because these things are not really, they don't really exist in a bubble. Like the score reflects the film that it's part of, and that's just always going to be the case. I mean, well, I don't want to say always, but it generally does. Either way, it does contribute to to what ends up on the end. And we also know from the deluxe edition of the soundtrack that there is like additional, as there always is. That's not just unique to this movie. Just, there is additional music that wasn't in the film, and you can kind of hear parts that, I think there's like 30 or so minutes or 20 or 30 extra minutes of music on the deluxe edition of the solo soundtrack. And I'm definitely not saying like definitely the parts that were cut out from the soundtrack just like should have been in and would have made the movie better or not. But you're right in that there is like a sort of jaggedness in the transitions. And sometimes the transitions I feel are pretty smooth, like in the part we just talked about where the violin sustains that note and then the secrets theme kind of like comes in, but it's based on just that single note that's already sustaining. Like I think that is smooth. And I think the moments that are smooth are the moments where the actors are really like commanding their lines really. And so like it's maybe smooth in a small way, like within one character's scene. Like if, like, and I think Paul Bettany, that's his name, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is honestly doing such a good performance here that like his presence carries it and it makes this, at least this 1 minute cohesive. But then when we transition to like a completely different setting, that's where the transitions are jagged. So I mean, I guess there's like a more macro and micro way of looking at the transitions. And yeah, it does present challenges going from like one scene to a completely other scene. I can imagine as a composer, it would probably be easier or maybe more gratifying. I don't know. For me at least, to score a cohesive scene, the transitions within a scene, like that is acted well and everything.
Might that have been I mean, I don't know how these things go in terms of like how movies are scheduled to do like scoring after filming and VFX and all that stuff. But would that have been kind of a side effect of changing directors so late in the game? That maybe, when Ron Howard came in, things shifted so much that it kind of made decisions like that be pushed to the end and kind of have the result of feeling jagged?
I think, well, the scoring comes like very much toward the end. So the scoring wouldn't have happened until after the directorial change.
Yeah.
But John Powell did start working on like ideas prior to that, like Chicken in the Pot and, you know, a couple sort of vague things. But in terms of getting the actual picture, which is like the cut of the film without the music, or in terms of getting the cut of the film, you know, obviously it has to be filmed first. So it would have been scored afterward. But pretty much all the interviews that I've heard from people who are part of production have just not really have not revealed many details about the nature of the change up. So we just don't really know that much about the drama, except that there was drama.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like some Illuminati thing where they're keeping like a tight lid on it. It's like was the moon landing faked? I think we'll get more info on that before we get more info on like what happened behind the scenes.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some information later. If anything, just for the sake of having real stories come out instead of rabid internet speculation, which can sometimes just make things worse than just knowing the truth.
Very much so.
If taken seriously, can very much so.
Yeah. So let's continue listening. Yeah?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Unless you could find somewhere to get it processed fast.
Well,
He's saying Savarine?
Savarine. Yeah, it's an old refinery there, and it's not under imperial jurisdiction.
But Kira's right. The canisters will explode before you
I think
get there. So
Woody Harrelson's
you'd
line
need
there
a
is kind of awkward.
Incredibly fast ship and a brilliant pilot.
We'll find a ship. We've already got the pilot.
He is arrogant and he's
Her laugh there.
hungry. So what do you think, my dear? You think your friend here can do what needs to be done?
Yes, I believe you can.
Okay. In that, I love that bit of score right there.
Yeah. I agree.
So first of all, basically when Han is like, you know, we'll get a ship or whatever, and insinuates like that he knows he's such a good pilot, and Dryden laughs, you know, to say like, oh my gosh, what a cocky little kid. And Kira catches on quickly and, you know, kind of laughs with him at Han forcibly. But he's hungry and all that is sort of like, I didn't like Mo. I didn't interpret that as him knowing that there's something with Kira, although I do think it's like a reasonable thing that would cross his mind either way.
Yeah.
But the cockiness of Han, I think it does feel motivating, or Dryden is motivated to let Han have a chance because it's clear that Han will work hard for him. And, you know, if he might as well put Han's attitude to his advantage. And when the young Han Solo theme comes in, first it comes in a more muted way. And then when Kira jumps in to kind of give her vote of approval, it is reinforced by strings, which kind of gives it a more like loving, I don't know, romantic sort of feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
needs to be done.
feel that too, like here.
Yeah.
I feel that, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Yes, I believe you can.
And then
Which is interesting because it starts like the whole sequence starts with when Beckett starts like giving the idea of the plan. All of a sudden, like the winds like start chiming in to like kind of bring in that hopeful tone to the conversation instead of just like that ominous thing we had going on before. And from there we go into Han's theme, but it's not going in that brass heroic way that we expect it to be. It goes into the winds and the strings in that romantic sense, which is like the kind of naive, hopeful, romantic thing that I don't know if it's hearkening directly to Han and Leia's theme in Empire, because it's very similar, at least to me. Obviously, it's like a different melody, but it's structurally, it sounds similar, but with a different melody, if that makes sense. I keep saying that makes sense.
Wait, are you talking about like the dee 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 dee? Are you talking about that theme?
Yeah, but the orchestration when it happens when Kira's talking, it's at least to me is very reminiscent to the orchestration of
Right.
Han Solo and the Princess in Empire.
I hear what you're saying. And there are similarities. Like, I think there are a lot of similarities between pretty much all of the, even though this is not John Williams, it's like kind of after John Williams in a style. A lot of the love themes or like have a similar type of romantic sound to them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And strings and winds are often involved, in heavily as opposed to maybe like brass, which is maybe more foregrounded in heroic moments.
Mm-hmm.
So like
He is arrogant and he's hungry. So what do you think, my dear? You think your friend here can do
Shelley,
what needs to be done?
just wait for the violin. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes,
Well,
I believe it.
Okay, that note, it goes. And then it goes. So, okay. So it sets up by like finishing the phrase of the Han theme, and then it sets up the next chord, and it's really like, it's really like a dominant chord, which is, how do I explain this? It's sort of like a chord that it's a very leading chord to what comes next, and it just feels kind of like it feels like a spark. It feels like a fresh breath there to me. Like it feels like it feels like it's, whereas the theme ended and it's moving on to something else. I don't know. I think it's very beautiful. And
I mean, to
a
an
solo
extent,
and
it
then
might be like a character for her, right? Where she feels like, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to move away from this life and somehow.
Yeah, and the way it's placed is right before she gives her line. So it's like kind of like a little, like things like that sound to me like pillows waiting for like someone's line to come on top. It's like, here you go.
I'm ready to catch you.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, Han and Kira are staring at each other when like the crescendo of the music starts to happen. So it's like that moment shared between them also. So I don't know. I think it was really well placed right there.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, let's continue listening. And when she comes in, we'll hear like solo oboe, which is very reminiscent of like Leia.
Yes, I believe you can.
Well, that is good news because you're going with him to see that he does. All right?
Of course.
All right. I'll see you all on Savareen.
Savareen it is.
Notice
I
how we
feel
have that
great about
single
this
sustained
plan.
string
We should
again
do this
there.
again. It's been fun.
Great.
Oh, and it just...
Yeah, that single sustained string again served as a pivot point for a new character in the music to come through. Where now it's this more upbeat, like, all right, let's go get him thing.
Yay.
Yeah.
After the threat.
Yeah.
After that night.
Yeah.
Which is I think that's how I interpret it. It's just like, oh, everyone's hopeful, but then it's like that note is kind of like, don't get your hopes too high, because this is like there's still a looming threat around you, and like kind of the quote Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, things are not gonna go the way you think.
Yeah. That's a quote for sure for the ages. So back to that pillow chord. The one, the pillow chord. I guess for the music people listening, I guess it's less of like, I wouldn't characterize it necessarily as like, this is a dominant chord setting up to the next thing. Although something about it feels of that flavor. But I think what I'm really picking up on is, well, let's see. We're in a minor key, and then it's a okay. So let me work this out for the music people. Okay,
Go for it.
Okay, so we're in C minor, and then it goes to. Okay, so yeah, we're in C minor. And then it goes to an A major. And in the key of C minor, an A major would be, I think that would count as a chromatic median. It's basically, it is not necessarily, it's okay, an A major, the third of the A major, the raised third, is a C sharp, whereas in the key of C minor, obviously it's not a C sharp, it's a C natural. And so the raising of that third kind of like lends to this perky effect. It's like one of the notes just like raising up half a step. And if I would guess, it goes. So the A major is setting up what comes after that, which I believe is a D minor. I'm kind of doing this on the spot. Okay.
Yes, I believe you can.
A major. D. Okay, it's more like a G minor. But anyway, the point is it's sort of like the shifting between like the minor and the major and the woodwind line that comes after, which is like this, it kind of has this, I don't know, slinky, one might call it. It's sort of, it kind of has like flavors of Orientalist origin. And that also is sort of, I mean, it's sort of a trope. I mean, I don't want to see, I'm not accusing this of being like a blatant exotification or anything like that, but just sort of there's a long history of things like Scheherazade, which is a piece by Rimsky-Korsakov. There's a long history of basically like women or love and sexy things and like sort of tender, delicate things being portrayed in a musical way that is like fluid, like that oboe line, and kind of plays around with like half steps and basically has the overall result of sounding exotic and things. Like, I don't know if you got that feeling there where it does kind of sound a little bit like quote unquote exotic.
I mean, I get the way I get that was necessarily for like some more female themes. I got it for more like the Crimson not Crimson Dawn. Jesus Christ, what's the Raiders, the Marauders? What's their theme? I forgot what their theme was.
Okay, and that was another connection that I was going to draw. We're going to hear it a little bit more later too, but the
it's like using sounds and instruments that are not necessarily of like Western orchestration to make something sound alien, which I don't know if that's, I mean,
or like foreign in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Which happens in the next scene, right? When they're in the elevator,
Yep.
they like bring in like this, like, I don't know, there's a different type of guitar or something, but it sounds very foreign to the score all of a sudden. It's kind of like to transition into okay, we're going to an alien place now that's different from what Han is used to, or at least in how I interpret it within the score and the situation, right?
Yeah. So, shall we move on?
Yeah. Keep going.
Anyone have? Okay. Just wanted to get that piece out there.
We'll be out of options, right?
We won't.
So I thought that went
He's
really
so
well.
he's so scary.
Let's get this done as quick and as clean as possible. What do you need?
I can scrounge up the gear. You got a line on the ship?
I know a guy. And I know just where to find him. It's a long shot, but it's worth a try. He's the best smuggler around. He slipped through the Empire's fingers more times than anyone else.
So we have Han's
He's
themes
attractive
happening.
too. Sophisticated with impeccable taste and charisma.
She's laying it on thick.
Not
Oh,
to
yeah.
mention his prodigious.
I get it.
Did you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you notice about what's happening there?
The thing is, it's interesting because listening to it now, I did not catch any of the things that I listened to when I listened to it at home. For some reason, because and maybe it's just me projecting when I was listening to it while seeing the clip. But for some reason, in the back of my mind, when I was seeing that clip, I kept hearing like undertones of the Bespin theme or Lando's theme from Empire. Somehow, I did not catch it at all now. So like I'm clearly making it up. But
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
all an illusion. Doesn't matter.
Mo. It's interesting because what we are viewing on screen can impact so much how something translates to our ears.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because like, I don't know. Like when I hear it without the visuals, I start to hear more the backgrounds. Like there's so many things going on. You have like droids, but you also have like garglings and like weird noises that we're not used to. So like it's almost like to me, I like it's a conversation. So now it just fades to the back. I don't know. Maybe it's just my mind. It's just like wait, I want to hear what's going on around. But it brings out like it does feel like kind of like going back into like Jabba's palace at like Return of the Jedi, and there's like everything going on. Like it feels like that in a sense.
Like
And
with all
actually,
the
from the sounds, yeah. And I don't think from the sounds you can really tell exactly where they are because visually we know they're at a bar, but to me it sounds more like they're at a smithy's or a mechanics, a garage, something like that. It sounds more like that to me than the sounds you are used to hearing at a bar, especially a Star Wars bar.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting because a sort of a common theme that's come up this season, or at least by this season, I mean just in this movie with my experience of it, is that I'm not always firmly situated in a location. And I think listening to it without the visuals right now as well, I'm a little bit unclear of like where this conversation is taking place, like the transition of it, because it sounds like when the crowd enters, when you hear like the ambiance of the bar enter, it sounds kind of sudden in a way that like
Yeah, because the whole conversation is happening in three different places. It's like it's them walking to the elevator on Dryden's pleasure yacht or whatever it's called. Then it's like them walking up the steps to go into like the cantina, and then it's or bar or whatever, and then it's inside the bar. So like that's why there's like a sonic dissonance versus like the visual information that we're getting because it's carrying across three different physical spaces, even though it reads like one conversation.
Well, I think the transitions do help me realize like, okay, now we are clearly, looking at the Sabacc table or whatnot. But I think maybe what's confusing, and let's do it again because again, maybe now I'm misremembering, but it feels like Kira's voice doesn't change much. Like it sounds like so almost so consistent that even when the background is changing, the main dialogue kind of stays the same, which makes me think like I would believe if someone told me this was just a voiceover, like it was just, someone completely separated from the scene that they're traveling between,
Right.
Let's listen to that again because maybe we're all wrong. I don't know, but now
And I know just where to find him. It's a long shot, but it's worth a try. He's the best smuggler around. He slipped through the Empire's fingers more times than anyone else. He's attractive, too.
See? It's like the background changes so suddenly because obviously they're in a new place, but her dialogue sounds it sounds like it didn't change.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
like
the same
it's
tone
the
of
same
voice.
conversation instead of like a different,
Yeah.
like they're picking up a different thing. Yeah.
It's like she's talking to him, but they're looking at a projector and she's pointing to like, and C and exhibit B.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
Right. Which
I
goes to
don't
what
know.
Mo was saying right at the beginning of this, like the music, kind of
Jagged.
the music being disjointed with kind of what's happening in the scene a little bit, which
Yeah.
kind of listening to it without seeing the visuals kind of more jarring in that sense, because it's like, wait, is this have they even traveled anywhere? So because if it weren't for the background noise, you wouldn't be able to tell that, yeah, they have traveled and are at a new place. It was like
Yeah.
the same conversation, three different places, but it's still continuous all throughout.
Yeah. Let's continue.
Just like,
Oh,
or I wonder if that was like there was a previous conversation that was supposed to be there, and they just cut it out. And
I don't know. I mean, I wish we did.
We may never find out.
we will never know.
Maybe in 20 years, like they'll publish one of these books and then give all the information after a long time, but not yet.
But the thing is, like, despite intentions, it still is like a creative, it still is a choice to mix things in a certain way. So it feels like it was a stylistic choice. Like it couldn't have been just a series of mistakes, because it feels like this is sort of just a sound mixing style that I've noticed throughout. And I'm not I guess I'm saying that it doesn't feel like individual choices so much as like an overall setting that they have decided to go with, like a protocol that they have decided to go with. And I don't know.
Sophisticated with impeccable taste and charisma. Not to mention his prodigious.
We get it.
But he's retired. Says he's a sportsman now.
All we need is a ship.
Well, he'll never part with it. He loves that ship. He won it.
Like, this is so expository.
Playing Sabacc.
And there's the rub, right? How was I supposed to know she was an Imperial spy? I thought she loved me.
That's the guy, huh?
First of all, a little James Bond joke, yeah? How was I supposed to know she was a spy? I thought she loved me. I'm guessing that's a spy who loved me joke. And I guess without looking at the scene, like if I try to forget what it looks like, I'm not sure how far away they are standing from him.
Right?
Well, they're moving throughout, at least from what I remember, from what I'm choosing to interpret from what I'm hearing. They're moving like throughout the space. So I think how we locate where they are is the sounds of the droid battle or the cage match or
that's a good
whatever,
point.
because it gets progressively louder as she talks about his prodigious whatever, and then after that, the sounds of the cage match start getting a little lower, and then at that point they kind of establish themselves. Okay, we've arrived to be spectators, right, to the Casino Royale moment of the movie. So it's still like a fluid scene based on what we were discussing previously, how it transitions from Dryden's yacht to like there. It's like one continuous movement of them, moving from all of these spaces to finally land in front of Lando. No pun intended. Lando. Yeah. Unintentional.
Well, and I think what Xanthe, what you were saying before, how Kira's just laying it on thick about Lando, it's just kind of setting up that their relationship, they're always going to be rivals even before they even meet. So it's just that amazing setup. And right after she talks about his prodigious whatever, you hear the droid battle in the background. So it's like the destruction of his manhood as compared to Lando, because Lando is, so charismatic and so amazing and all those things. But I think what really stands up to me is that this Lando sounds almost identical to B.D. Williams. So the first time that you hear his voice, it's just like, how is this happening that he sounds so much like B.D. Williams? So that really
Donald Glover
hits me.
Donald Glover was perfect casting. Yeah.
I think he's probably the best. Yeah, I think he's the best casting in this film.
Yeah.
Although I have been surprised to learn that not everyone agrees, which is fine. It's just interesting
okay to
that how
disagree.
people will pick up on different things. Like some people will swear like Alden Ehrenreich is perfect as Han, but Lando feels really off, and other
Interesting.
people will feel the exact opposite.
But for me, Alden's fine. I mean, I don't have any issues with him or his performance. My thing is just that Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. So it's just like, I can't get that, like his grumpy visage out of my mind. But if for me, when like I heard the casting of Donald Glover, for me it's just like it was uncanny at that point. I was like, this is just like perfect. There's no way
Yeah.
around it. And then I saw the performance, and I'm like, at that minute he says that everything you've heard about me is true. I'm like, that's it. That's Lando Calrissian. And the fact that he picked up on those little Billy D. Williams things of mispronouncing Han's name. Hey,
Yeah.
Han. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's
Yeah.
Han. It's just
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. This is
It
perfect.
was great. Yes.
And yet when Han says Sabacc, he corrects him Sabacc.
Sabacc. Yeah.
Which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good. And that's what we were saying before. It's like the movie when it works best when it's anchored by those character moments. Just like when we were like in the yacht scenes, like the movie was working well because we had those character moments of those interactions, and then everything in between is kind of like a little blurred. It's just like, okay, moments of really good character development followed by something in between.
It's almost like movies work better when there's like compelling actors on screen given space to do their job.
Amazing, right?
What a surprise.
Makes sense,
Yeah, you'd think.
So something about the sound, like a positive effect, I think, of the kind of separation between the foregrounded dialogue and the backgrounded sound effects and dialogue is like, okay, like I guess I have grumbled about that I don't really know exactly where I am, or I feel like it's kind of happening on a separate track. Like maybe they're like like it kind of sounds like if they're talking and moving through this, they're like in a pod where they're kind of sealed off a little bit, so or something. But I just realized like sort of a positive effect, or like a way that it might help the scene is actually that what Nani said about how it's setting up Han and Lando to be rivals right from the very start. And not only that, it kind of adds to this it kind of adds to the like not mythic, but sort of like all of Kira's lines leading up to meeting Lando are very, laying it on thick and very like she's telling tall tales about him almost. She's really talking him up. It almost feels so silly. It's like campy. It feels like so silly that these lines feel so silly that to set up Lando, you'd almost have to do it in this sudden way where it's like their conversation ends perfectly, like cuts off at just the right word for them to land in front of him, like right when he's in the middle of the table, like this is the angle of him. It's like setting him up like a king, basically. And yeah, it's like cheesy and almost like if it were leaned into even more, I think I would like really get the point. I mean, I am getting the point now, but like
it's
sometimes
interesting. It's interesting that you're saying it because it makes sense, right, with the framing of Lando and Han's relationship in Empire, because it's kind of an inverse, right? An inverse. Han is building up Lando to Leia, and then when they land, Lando doesn't show up. So it's not like that perfect thing. So it's like that inverse, and then Lando then shows up, and then
so
Lando's the one
true.
laying it thick. So it's like that inverse where like Han has switched roles with Kira, and Lando is not on time anymore because he's busy being an administrator instead of just a lazy poker dealer.
That's funny. Yeah. So another thing is that Lando perhaps comes off more, or or perhaps it's easier to get his character across in the screen despite the casting of a younger version and whatnot. And perhaps it's easier to write his lines because he's not really a character who is developing. It's it must be easier to write a character who is kind of a static character, and probably easier to fill those shoes because we know Han so much better that it's harder to convincingly do a Han.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. Because it might be a thing also of expectations where like people have built up this, and I think that's just the overall problem with Star Wars in general. It's been in the public consciousness for 40 years, and people have their own idea of what Star Wars is to them.
Yes,
and especially
they do.
with the original trilogy and original trilogy characters, like specifically Han, there's a lot of I to use parlance over time, a lot of toxic masculinity imbued into what the expectation of what Han is supposed to be. That it's hard to make a new background to it when some people already have like an expectation of what he's supposed to be or what he's not supposed to be. And I think that this movie kind of did too much too fast in terms of like that development. It's like he's the rogue you remember, but he's actually a nice guy, but he's still finding himself, but he's still a great pilot. It's just like he's everything all at once, and no one is that, especially when they're starting out. So that's why like I had a hard time connecting with this version of Han. It's just like I don't know which Han this is, as opposed to Lando. Lando's just the Lando we knew. He's cool and suave, wearing cool capes. So it's easier to connect with that, despite the actor. It's not the actor's fault. It's the development, right?
Well, yeah, we don't demand as much from Lando. Not nearly.
We demand him to be cool. That's it. Lando has to be cool, and he most definitely is in Solo.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this sounds like a lot of this is echoed in the Book of Boba Fett, which has come up a lot of times over the course of this season. It may have just come from me though, so I just find a lot of parallels with in the way that I feel about this movie and Book of Boba Fett. There are a lot of expectations on a character like Han, and there were weirdly 100%. A lot of expectations on Boba Fett.
Which is even more weird.
And trying to do too much for Boba Fett too, yeah.
Boba Fett has like 3 lines in the entire original trilogy, and is more mythical than any other characters. And people, and it's the same thing, even worse, right? People's expectations built up on like it's projection to a degree. It's like, what do you want to imbue the character with when like you're not given the information, right, that you would want to have from it? You project onto them, and I think that's the problem that Book of Boba had. I mean, I don't think that they took Boba in a bad direction. I actually like the direction that Boba was taken in. I just thought that the series didn't do it justice because it kind of played the interesting parts of Boba Fett were downplayed and the uninteresting parts were overplayed to an extent. And it's the same thing with Solo. Like all the cool stuff, which for me the cool stuff for Han is Corellia and the Empire, and then him defecting from the Empire. And all the boring stuff is him getting the Millennium Falcon. It's like, okay, well, I've already seen Han with the Millennium Falcon. I know that character. I want to see what brought him there. Like defecting from the Empire, like being a scum rat in the yards of Corellia. That's really cool. That's really compelling. That's telling me what his development is. And I think the movie would have been strengthened if maybe, I don't know if it's 2 movies or a Disney Plus series or something like that, where we get to flesh out those moments more to see how he changes into the character, as opposed to being that character all at once for everybody. It's just like, you can't do that. It's the problem with Rise of Skywalker. It's everything all at once for everybody, and that's impossible. Right.
I like Rise of Skywalker, but I get it. Yeah.
It's fine. It's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think something else what's funny is that like the themes that I like the themes that John Williams wrote for young Han in this movie. I like that music. And I do appreciate that he was given those, both the heroic versions and the searching versions, because I think that is true to Han. And I feel like more of the searching probably would have pleased me more than the heroic. But yeah.
He's not a hero yet. He doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be a smuggler.
That's the
makes
thing.
sense,
He's
right?
never wanted to be a hero, really.
And that's his whole point. He's reluctant, right? Even in A New Hope, he comes back out of guilt, and it's probably because Chewie was in the back of the Millennium Falcon, being like, "Hey, bro, you just left our new bros behind. We gotta save them." He didn't want to come save them. He does it because Chewie gave him a guilt trip. So that's the cool thing about Han in that sense. It's just like he's not Luke Skywalker. He's not out there to be the paragon of heroism. He is a hero because he needs to be at the last minute.
I can't help but notice like Chewie's absence in not only this whole movie, but sort of in the scene too, where Chewie is really undergoes not really any development. We don't really get much more of Chewie either. And here, I think the only thing that he says is like Savarine or something, where he kind of feeds the line that Beckett then says. But
yeah, he's very much in the background, and there's no establishment of how important that relationship is between the two of them and how important it's gonna be going forward. So I feel like Chewie was a little, he was done dirty a little bit in this film, like shoved aside to like a little corner, and there you just growl every so often, and that's it. Be Chewie, so like, it was kind of it was insulting to the character, honestly.
Yes. I know Mo cares about this.
Right.
Of course,
for sure. No, it's almost like it's like, oh, you're a pet, not even like a pet that you'd love. It's like, it's there.
You're an acquisition. Like the blaster, like the Millennium Falcon, something we got along the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
but something that
it's like,
no, please go ahead.
No.
Well, I was going to say something that I think about a lot is what you said the last time that you came on, where you're talking about the lack of Chewie's subtitles, and you kind of made a case for, don't translate him. Like,
don't translate Chewie.
He can't be translated. It wouldn't communicate all that he is. Perhaps it wouldn't communicate all that he is actually saying, and so I do think about that now, where it's like. Well, one remaining thing is that like we only get Chewie, we mostly just get Chewie through the little bits that like Han translates of him. And maybe there's just so much more we don't know about Chewie that is being that we can find out later when someone wants to handle that, that subject matter, Shriwook and everything with Chewie, more specificity and So I'm like, you know what? If you're not going to make Chewie that important, then sure, save his content. We'll still have some Chewie secrets to discover later.
Chewie secrets. Yes.
Yes, I agree. As Han and Chewie's relationship is supposed to be transcendental, and this whole life debt and everything, and then it's just like, oh well, Han just rescued him once upon a time from a brig, and then just dragged him along.
That's the life debt. That was it. That
was it. Anticlimactic. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well. And then I don't know how you guys felt about this, but I know it's on par with like Han's personality, but the way that Han gave Chewie the nickname, I found it a little offensive. As someone who has a name that people have trouble pronouncing sometimes, for Han to be so flippant, considering that he apparently speaks Shriwook. To be just like, I'm not saying that, I'm saying Chewie. It was like, hey, bro, respect your new best friend. Say like, hey, do you go by something else or something?
Oh my gosh, wait till Han meets Thrawn. Oh my god.
Right?
Oh my god.
how you pick it up from their relationship in the original films and stuff, it seemed that Chewie was more of a term of endearment, not something that's just because I don't want to pronounce your entire name. So it was a little jarring.
He says, "I'm not saying all that."
Your name,
Or he says, "I'm not saying that every time." Or
yeah.
It's like, come on.
Like I get it makes sense for the character, I guess, but still, again, it comes from a cultural place. Like
for sure.
Like, it's I want people to respect how my name is pronounced.
Han is like a one-stop shop Ellis Island. He's like, and Chewie. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and Han's name is literally 3 letters, and he gets upset when his name gets mispronounced, and he can't say Chewbacca's entire name. I mean, come on.
Good point. Good point. That's a very good point.
Oh goodness. So where were we? We were just meeting the
Lando.
prodigious Lando.
Prodigious.
Interesting style.
I'll say.
Interesting style.
One is ship.
I have an offer. Sabacc this. I'm gonna call
I
him.
can take him. Let me at him.
Absolutely not. Han, these guys are serious gamblers.
I'm serious. Stake me. Don't listen to him.
Thank you. Thank you. You see, how'd you guys let me beat you on that one?
For a second, that music sounded like diegetic, and I'm still not. Do you know what I mean? Okay. When the music kind of abruptly changes, it sounds like horn. It sounds almost like alpine horns or something. Right here.
Thank you. Thank you. You see, how'd you guys let me beat you on that one? Come on. There's no liars in this.
It's more like textural in the background, right?
A little bit.
Sabacc this. I'm gonna call
I
him.
can take him. Let me at him.
Absolutely not. Han, these guys are serious gamblers.
I'm serious. Stake me. Don't listen to him.
Right there.
Thank you. Thank
Dee,
you.
dee, dee, dee.
You see, how'd you guys let me beat you on that one? Come on. There's no liars in this game.
It's kind of an abrupt transition there.
Yeah, it is.
But it's interesting because there's so much like ambient noise around from everything that it's gonna. I don't know if it was like a conscious decision or let's just do a subtle thing in the background so it's more textural. Gonna add to the ambience of the scene instead of just like putting a straight melody in there or something that would just get lost within all the noise. Maybe that was the decision, just something more muted, the transition into the game itself.
But the more I hear it, the more I feel like what Xanthe's been saying. Like it feels like it's like the background and what they're saying. It's like 2 different layers. Like the recording didn't happen at once. It was just like, okay, let's do the background, and then let's do the talking, and then we'll put them together. And it's weird because it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like they're there in any way.
It's ADR,
yeah, and it
right?
sounds kind of strange.
Right?
Well, it sounds kind of strange because the whole entire time that Kira and Han are having the conversation, their voices sound pretty low, and the camera is looking at them. But somehow Lando's voice is the loudest throughout the entire encounter. So there's like
it's
a
Lando like
disjointed
shouting.
there. That yeah.
I think
So
I
it's
think
like-
that decision's purposeful though, because it's just like it's from kind of Lando's point of view. Lando's now dominating the scene, so they're whispering, but he doesn't hear them. So I think that's why that's framed that way. So I think that was purposeful in that sense, and like them talking about it, but they're not supposed to be heard. It's supposed to be about this.
And then obviously it's also
the
because it's also like Lando's introduction too. It's like the first time we're meeting Lando as well. So you kind of make him, like Xanthe was saying, king of the scene. Like he's sitting there at the table, it's his throne, and these are all his lackeys, and they just applaud because they worship him, kind of situation.
Yeah. There is something like I was also thinking it could be from Han's point of view where like he's now hyper fixated on like, who is this Lando? Like, can't stop
that Kira
can't
talks
stop
about so
hearing
much.
him.
It's like, wait, has
Piece of-
Kira and Lando? He's trying to fill in dots. It's like, wait, what's
He
happening?
can't unhear him. He's like, ah.
Yeah, it's like that's
What if everything Kira said is true?
So it's like
He's
an
probably
earworm.
got some really good albums on Earth.
What did you say, Mo?
Oh, it's like an earworm now for.
Yeah, and he can only hear Lando's like really charismatic lines.
Everything else is
Damn it.
blurred.
And Gus, I heard you say like ADR, and like, yeah, of course, that's a given. Like the original A New Hope is so much ADR itself. They all have a lot of ADR, so it's like I see this less of as I don't think that's the thing to blame because that's just a given in movies. Like there is just, it's like I don't care how it happened. This is how but this is the result. So what you gonna do about that?
Right, but sometimes it's. But I think my point more to that was more so because all movies do ADR, but it's not jarring when it lines up with what you're seeing. But sometimes they do the ADR to just swap out lines of dialogue because they changed up the script and they have to go back and just record new lines and then drop it in the scene. And sometimes that kind of takes you out because it's like, oh wait, but that's kind of not the feel that this scene is having, but that's what they're saying all of a sudden. I'm not saying that's what happens here necessarily, but it could. I don't know. I know it has happened in other films I've seen. It's just like, wait, this is clearly like a post-production thing. Where they just came in to recontextualize what's happening.
I would love to know. I would just love to know how this was made. I'm just so curious. I'm curious. So when all this stuff is happening, just like to circle back a few minutes, we were talking about not a few minutes in the scene, like a few minutes in this conversation, talking about how it almost feels like we're not there at the same time, but how the music is maybe not an abrupt or a jagged transition so much as just so much is happening that I forgot who said it. Maybe it was Mo, like that it's almost ambient or it's almost like, I don't know. Put it this way: it's in this point of the score, it almost sounds more like less of a 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s Star Wars movie, and more of perhaps a 2020 or 2010s Star Wars movie, but not even that. Like I'm thinking of heist movies. I'm thinking of like Mission Impossible, and and I don't know why I'm thinking of that. It's just, I'm thinking of TV shows too. I'm thinking of the type of scoring where it is more textural and pulsing.
Yeah.
And can kind of be more flexible over a scene where it is more underscorey, but in a pulsing way. And I'm thinking of this, like, I think I hear like a nylon guitar or something, a nylon string guitar, where it's like doo, 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 at some point. And that kind of reminds me of like TV shows set in the Southwest. You just hear that guitar come in all the time type of thing. Okay.
I think I know what you're talking about. Because it reminded me of it's completely left field. It reminded me of that scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and before he goes to Hawaii and he's composing the score for the TV show. He's like, "Oh, it's dark and ominous. I get it." He just plays the same notes on the piano. It's just like very monotone type of thing. I don't know if that's what you're kind of like. That
I don't remember that scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but it is something about it feels very like, I'll play it again and listen for just the texture of like the background music specifically.
She's an imperial spy. I thought she loved me.
That's the guy, huh? An interesting style.
I'll say.
You say he won his ship?
I have an awful spot, Chris. I'm gonna call
I can take him. Let me at him.
Absolutely not.
It's pulsing.
These guys are serious gamblers.
I'm serious. Stake me. Don't listen to him.
That.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hitting those guitar harmonics.
Which is kind of fairly noticeable with all the stuff going on around it.
By design, yeah.
Mm.
What if that were
That's not fair. None of us
characterized
can sing.
Oh.
I mean, only a karaoke.
He's like, speak
in
for
certain-
yourself.
in a certain context.
Okay, so let's hear how the king of the scene, the king of the cards, is introduced.
There's no liars in this game, just players.
The seat taken?
Players.
Nobody's in the seat, then it ain't taken, friend.
See, the pulsing is still
This
continuing.
is Sabacc?
Sabacc.
Sabacc. Got it.
You played before?
Ironic.
A couple times, yeah.
Captain
Now
Lando
music
covers
has
it.
cut out.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
Looks like you're having a good day.
I'm a lucky guy.
Can I ask you a question, Captain Calrissian?
Anything, Han?
It's Han,
So I believe
but
that's Therm Scissor Punch.
That's okay. I heard a story about you. I was wondering if it's true.
Everything you've heard about me
Droids.
is true. Thanks, love.
Did you win your ship playing cards?
Oh, I've won a lot of
Thanks,
things.
love.
I once won a subtropical moon in the Ocean Belt.
Wow.
Turned out to be a real money pit.
I'm impressed. I don't think I'd have the nerve to gamble with something I love as much as my ship.
Really?
Oh, gotta love how the music cuts out for this very important conversation. Really, I am glad that the music got out of the way there.
Yeah.
So that we can focus.
On Han and Captain Calrissian.
Han and Sabacc.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. There's so much in this whole set of minutes, but in this dialogue that is filled with, obvious innuendo and like jokes, but it feels like, I don't know. Well, what do you think? What do you think of the dialogue here?
I personally love it. Yeah, I'll go for it, Mo.
I was just gonna say, like, they're like testing themselves out. It's almost like this like very,
It's a dance.
like it's something you see from like, it's very macho. Like, oh, you're coming into my territory, but I'm like just I'm prodding. I'm just curious. I'm like, I'm asking your permission, like, because like why would he just ask Lando if the seat is taken? There's like 10 other people in the, like, you can ask like around, like, look around the table, like he's recognizing like, oh, you're like the pack leader. I'm playing the game with you. It's very, I don't know, it reminds me of like National Geographic documentaries of like, this is like the males coming into like,
It is. It's literally peacocking. That's what's happening. The only difference.
It's fun.
The only difference is that one person knows what they're doing and the other one does not, because you can tell that Han is compensating because of everything that overcompensating because of everything that Kira was saying. So he's like, okay, well, I gotta assert myself here. And Lando is completely confident in who he is and what he's doing, and he's just like entertaining the kid that just sat at the table. So there is definitely a play of that, Mo. I just think it's the cute thing about the scene is that that imbalance of power, because clearly one person's way in over his head and the other person is not, and the person that's not is clearly Lando. What do you think, Nani?
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of posturing and just kind of taunting each other to see how far they would go as well. And it's so obvious where Han is trying to take Lando to kind of imbalance him, act like he's a complete novice, but then he starts winning right away. And the whole thing, oh, I would never, ever bet a ship. It's just it's like, it's a verbal battle between both of them and seeing who would possibly come out on top. But it's definitely a lot of they're way dicks. It's what they're doing. Measuring them, sorry.
It's immature masculinity at its best.
Yep. Sorry for the bad word.
Oh no, that's fine. I think what makes Lando come off even more as the king in this situation is later on, or like I guess in a few seconds, when they talk about sort of like how good their ships are.
Really?
Let's hear.
What do you fly?
VCX 100.
That is a quality ship, right, boys?
It's the fastest in the galaxy, but there's a lot of great ships out there. I mean, I'm sure yours is very nice.
Guess me where I'm going.
Guess me where I'm going.
Beginner's luck.
Well played.
So he says, guess me where I'm going. Like downplaying the Millennium Falcon, which we know, the audience, how special it is.
Best ship in the galaxy.
But he's entertaining this kid. Like, all your ships, I'm sure your ships seems good. Yeah. No. He says that's a good one, or whatever he says. And Han thinks that he is the winner here. But as we find out, Lando's the one who has full sabacc.
Yeah.
Not by the best means, because he cheated, but.
Yeah, but I can totally see that Lando's also like playing to the crowd.
Yeah, that's true.
He is, yeah. Very true.
And Mo?
But that's very, like, isn't that like what power is? Like, it's an illusion at the end of the day, like, and that's what Lando is great at. Like, like, Lando could be just equally lying the same way Hannah is. It's just like he's just a better con artist, and it's better at making those around him follow the story. Like, it's
it's layers of illusion, because the Falcon is impounded, but he pretends that so he's just better at showing off, and a better sheet, obviously, because he's got all the cards up his sleeve, literally.
Power is an illusion, that is for sure. And I think what's maybe maddening for Han is that Han kind of like does all this. Han has like a bit of Lando in him, but Lando does it better. He's more developed in what he can do.
It's like Han wants to be Lando. Like, it's like fans about it, but
he wants to get there quicker, but Lando has the benefit of experience.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So when this music kicks, like we're nearing the end of the minutes, and right at the end is like the music really kicks in. So
yeah.
Like,
beginner's luck.
Well played.
So what is that? See, it's more of that pulsing.
Is it diegetic though? Because I do feel that might be music in the poker Sabacc game.
Interesting. I don't think it is, but it's interesting. But I find it fascinating that, like, okay,
that's it.
Let's entertain this. Where do you think it would be coming from? Would someone be playing it live?
Speakers that Lando got floating around. I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's just like feels very distinct from everything we've heard so far, because everything's very traditional orchestration for film, and also I think this music feels more contextual to the place. It's not quite alien, but it's not quite what we've heard before. It's more, it's more in tune to what's happening in a uncharacteristic way from all the melodies we've heard. Like, I don't know if they're using different instruments or something, but it's got a completely different vibe that I think could be. I mean, it might not be, but I think it could fit the ambience. I lost all my words. Sorry, my brain just shut down.
It's fine. Like I actually get what you're saying. I'm curious for other people's opinion. What do you all think?
I think there's something wind chimey about it.
Wind chimey.
Yeah. Just like actual tone of it, but forced into like a thumping, you know, not its natural movement, but just like wind chimes like forcefully being a little bit more, I don't know, impactful somehow. I don't know.
Mo?
To me, and this might just be like me putting a layer of like my own memories, but it sounds like the beginning of, and it makes sense on the scene of like the Under Pressure, the song from Freddie Mercury and
David Bowie.
Is that
and David Bowie? It like there's like something to it, and it's especially like right in the, I don't know, maybe I'm just making
and especially
it up,
maybe when it says
like...
the ding ding.
Oh.
I think we need to listen.
And then it's like, you know, it's like they're literally under pressure. Now it's like, okay, we play their words, but how good are we?
That a lot.
I know. I'm writing that down.
Now we definitely need to see the behind the scenes of this.
When Mo speaks, it's like a mic drop.
Every time.
To me, it's the other way around. I think like every time you all speak, it's like
oh my gosh.
Drop. I'm just like
no.
Too humble.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. Okay, wait. Let's listen to that again because now I need to I need to think. I need to hear it again after just hearing the Under Pressure connection.
Out there. I mean, I'm sure yours is very nice.
Gets me where I'm going.
Beginner's luck.
Well played.
Yeah, heard it at the beginning.
Let's see what we...
Okay. First of all, it's the same interval.
It's kind of like a staccato, right? I think that's why.
There's actually a lot of similarities. Okay, so we have the pulsing. It's like a very steady pulse in Under Pressure. I am thinking of the right song, right?
Yes.
And it's also in that
it is
Ice Ice Baby song.
Yeah.
Samples. Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. It goes and this goes so it's the same like it's a perfect fourth, so the same interval, which is, you know, it's not uncommon, but here the texture of it definitely the pulsing of it, it's like the it sounds like almost like a synthesizer. It probably is. Yeah, this sounds synthy. And then it's in a 4/4 meter. It's like almost the same. It's a very similar tempo too, and it's almost like an Under Pressure. It serves as more of a bass. It's not not a bass like the bass instrument, but it's like the basse. It's, you know, it's like intro. It's more of like a foundation, and then there's more songs and more like melodies and stuff that happen on top of it and everything. And here also, it's not like this is the Force theme or something. Yeah. It's not like this is a super main theme. It is more textural, more of like an introductory, you know, pad to this thing that's happening. And then as we hear, like we already started to hear a little bit of the Hans theme weaving in, and other things end up weaving in and everything. So it is funny. It does serve a pretty similar purpose.
And yeah. Cool. And the song is about that, like Under Pressure. Like both under pressure.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think of like what makes both of them work as Under Pressure music. It could be the terseness of the notes, like that, or something. Means it's kind of meta.
Or maybe because it's like this percussive. It's not percussive. It's not percussion, but you know what I mean.
No, it is
like
percussive.
Rhythm to it. It relates to, I don't know, heartbeat, and like you're in pressure, elevated heartbeat.
Yeah,
so there's, you know,
totally.
you feel a rhythm within you when you're in situations like that. So maybe that's how we start interpreting that. That's why we make that connection to that.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but
I mean, I like that.
Yeah, no.
It's a fast heartbeat, if so, and if it's like And the fact that it goes like dee 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 dee, or like in this, or the similar version of here, it's sort of like it skips like
Yeah.
dee dee dee, or yeah.
Sort of like like an electrogram, like.
Oh yeah, like the beep. Yeah.
We're all something here.
We're all just like thinking now about how like these two obviously unrelated things. Like I don't think John Powell's intentionally making a connection to David Bowie's Under Pressure, but still like there are similar types of music or gestures or instruments or articulations or rhythms or tempos or keys or harmonies that come out that sometimes just based on like the shared understanding of at least like hundreds of years of music and many genres, and that might sometimes result in like similar things for similar circumstances. Like we talked like earlier this season, I had a few conversations with people about flying music and like a lot of similarities, not in that like the songs all sounded alike, but just like common musical elements that would pop up in songs or pieces that dealt with flying. And it's just, and we already talked about it here, like kind of the romance thing is like a lot of times strings will come in, or like a lot of times violin will come in, or a lot of the times there will be this like kind of, I don't know, like Orientalist sort of, scale play. Things like this just happen.
Is it like a vibration that's associated with the feeling? Is it just like a subconscious thing that, even though we're not aware of to it, but there is a certain vibration to feeling like romance. There is a certain like vibration to feeling like under pressure. There is like a certain everything in our body is vibrating at a certain level. So maybe that's just like why we.
I mean, makes complete sense, right? Because that's the first instrument we had was our voice, and we make sounds through vibrating our voice. So
well, okay, wait.
Makes sense.
This might be a silly question, but like, what do you mean by vibrating?
Like, well, I mean, how far do we want to get into what we mean by vibrating? That's.
I mean, music is very related to vibrating.
Yes. Okay, so and this I'm borrowing and heavily on a book called The Jazz of Physics.
That sounds like something I want to read. Seriously, The Jazz of Physics?
It is, yes. And it's a physicist that was inspired by Coltrane, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's all about how,
there's a TED Talk about it.
the concept is like, every time we hear music, it's our brains doing math. It's perfectly combining vibrations to make something that makes sense. But on a more like fundamental level, everything is just vibrating energy that coalesces into like protons and like electrons that then interact with everything. So, and everything that's like a signal that's happening in our brains are just energy vibrations. So like we get vibrations from the heart all the time. Like that's the first vibration that we have. Like it's just heartbeats. Like our organs are vibrating all the time. I don't know if our brains are, but they probably are at some level. Like the nerves are receiving. Like so, like the music that correspond to the specific feeling might be because it, we vibe with that vibration. It those inner vibrations we might feel when we're feeling like scared or intent, like in a tense situation, and that's the whole play with it. I
That
don't
it
know.
resonates.
I'm rambling, and I'm
No, I get it. I like
literally,
it.
right?
Yeah.
and then literally
Resonate.
And resonate still,
Way to bring it
keeps
back.
it within the theme. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's so interesting because, well, like sound waves or like sound comes from oscillations or, like, which is why, like, if you ever play around in a digital audio workstation or like any kind of like synthesizer or something, if you ever play around in a program where you can make your own synthesized sounds, like where you can pick like square wave, sine wave, whatever. Oftentimes, or if you even just like buy a synthesizer, I hear those are analog too. You'll see like knobs that are for like oscillators, and you could have like one oscillator or two oscillators, and those literally they're there to create those waves or those vibrations, those oscillations, at depending on like if it's a sine, like if your oscillator produces like sine waves and it has like a certain shape, and if it's square waves it has a different type of shape, and which makes the sound different. And where was I going with this? I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, like it's related to like vibration. Sound is not really all that separate from the type of oscillatory motion. I don't really know. I'm not a physicist, but like I just like kind of I kind of just like feel the concept. It makes sense when people are talking to me about it, but I can't really talk about it. You know what? Mo, help me.
No, it does make perfect. Like because like even our brains, they're constantly like you can actually read them, like hear the music our brains make. It's constantly making wavelengths in different different shapes, sizes. Like when we're sleeping, we have certain wavelengths. When we're away, we have different. When we're learning, when we're meditating, like it has like so many different.
You mean we can
waves.
sonify the data from?
Yeah. And you can also play with it. There definitely you can play with like brain waves and like listen to specific brain waves. So all your brain like aligns into that wavelength. So you like listen. Like there's different like interpretations of it. It's just like a coalition of everything that's happening in our brains, and that's the output. If it's just like what is happening, that's still unknown. It's like, but it is beautiful. There is and this might be why I like this. I'm just jumping around, but like I like the fantasy of like Lord of the Rings. Like everything starts from a music, from like a song, and that it makes so much sense. Like this illusion of what we see is like a song playing out, in a very three-dimensional.
That's deep. Is that what Lord of the Rings is about? It's about like a song? No one's ever told me that.
Oh, that's the mythology.
That's how Middle Earth was created. I think Urdu is God in Lord of the Rings, and that's how he created the world. Yeah. And the Silmarillion, it's in there somewhere. Yeah.
Just say, how have I gone this long without knowing that Lord of the Rings is about a song?
A song.
This whole time.
And that is what you're seeing. We're seeing a song the whole time, like playing out.
Life is a song.
Life is a song.
I should read Lord of the Rings at some point in my life. Probably should.
It's okay. We'll do it one day.
Yeah, at least Fellowship. Give Fellowship a try. That's my favorite one.
I gotta go release order.
Or to do it the other way around. Read the Silmarillion first and then read everything
The
else.
thing with Silmarillion is really interesting. The problem with Silmarillion is that it reads more like a history book, more than like a narrative, right? Like more like a story that you're used to. So if you're into that, sure, go with the Silmarillion first.
I don't even.
I like it. It's like reading the Wikipedia version of it, and then you just dive in.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Never. No. What's funny is I have seen a couple Lord of the Rings movies, and I've seen The Hobbit, and like I saw The Hobbit with my dad and brother, and my dad he's never seen a Lord of the Rings. He just wanted to see The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know anything about Lord of the Rings. Like as little as I know about Lord of the Rings, he knows even less. He just wanted to see The Hobbit. I can't remember. It was so long ago because we saw it in theaters, and he's always just like been really into seeing. He just likes. He heard it was a big budget, and so he was just so curious. And we saw the movie. At the end, he was like, "So that was about a dragon." That's like the only. That was his takeaway. Was that it was about a dragon?
Well, the Hobbit films are. I mean, I'm not gonna get controversial here and say they're good or bad. I'm gonna say like the issue that the Hobbit films had, were that they're based on a children's book that's like what 200 pages, 250 pages long, so very short book, and they chopped up the Hobbit into 3 movies. So it's just like a book that already doesn't have that much content. You're splitting it up in 3 epic films. That's just like instead of like Lord of the Rings, where each movie is like one big book. Here's just like one little book into 3 movies. So you have to split up each like that one book 3 times, and each time 3 times. So you have a 3. So narratively, it's very tough films to watch. They're not my favorite. I prefer Lord of the Rings because they make sense as opposed to The Hobbit. But that's just one person's opinion. Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and be controversial and say that they're terrible. All 3 Hobbits are terrible. Sorry, not sorry. They're terrible.
That's funny. Well, I think that's a good time to just ask if you have final thoughts on the minutes, the music in what we discussed today, or in the rest of Solo. If you have any favorite musical moments, you can share those too.
I think the one I loved the most was after analyzing was the under pressure relationship
transition
we uncovered, or maybe not. We just made up.
We're onto something.
Maybe we're on something.
And if it's not a thing, it is now. Yeah, at least for me, I think one of the interesting things for Solo, with these minutes in particular, it's they're solid minutes. I think the music's really good, and it's a thing with Star Wars in general. It's like, how do we like do all these musical moments that feel like Star Wars? So in a sense, are very John Williams-esque, but then make a movie that's beyond John Williams. And I think that's where sometimes the score here struggles. It's just like, how do we, have that DNA but move past it? And I think it does do it with the Enfys Nest theme. Enfys Nest is a really cool theme because it's very, very foreign, and I think it's foreign to Star Wars in terms of like score, but also in terms of like the cultural backgrounds that they use to like inform the musical cues for that. So it does have those moments. I just feel like sometimes it's like too tied into like tradition to try to do something like beyond itself. But that's just in general with the score, right? I think our minutes were fantastic and fun. It was like such a good mixture of everything, like from threats and something ominous to like love and hope to like obviously with the prodigious Lando to like more playful banter and fun music. So it was definitely a fun couple of minutes to have with this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely really good minutes. Especially you get to see something, a little bit of a bunch of different characters. We get the Woody Harrelson character. We get Dryden Voss. Paul Bettany's fantastic, and a little bit more of that relationship with Kira and Han and how it's developing. And then obviously Lando, Chewie in the background. Sorry to be shafted a little bit there. But I think the score does a pretty good job of at least being a good background for the conversations that are happening. I hadn't noticed how jarring the transitions were, I don't think, until we analyzed them. So I think they could have done a little bit better there. But I do enjoy when the music is kind of serving only as a background and then it kind of crescendos and becomes the main character. And then that lack of silence in the conversation with Lando and Han just plays into it so well that it's the only scene in the entire minutes that is complete silence. And then you end the scene with another crescendo of music. And now with the analysis of it possibly being under pressure, I'm probably going to continue thinking about that. So yeah, it was a really good few minutes there.
Yeah, I think there really was quite a variety. And I think we had those two pivot points with the strings sustaining. And I think about like those moments where the string, a single sustained note can have such an effect and can be so just practically useful in composing to provide those pivot points, basically. And so we got two of those. And we got some cold starts to music, meaning like instead of it coming out of nowhere, where we hear the onset of it, like at the end of this when the under pressure came in, like, and that kind of has like an immediate effect of like, oh, now something's on. Like it's clear, which has again a very different effect than like when sometimes in the score things grow slowly and we don't even realize until they've already developed into something big that they've been there all along. It's just two different ways of doing it to suit different purposes. So I'm going to well, first of all, the themes from these minutes were the secrets. We heard the gang and we heard young Han Solo. We also, on the soundtrack, Is This Seat Taken? We have Dryden's Patience is Tested. We have the Card Room, and we have the beginning of Sabacc Game, 3M25. And before we end, I'm gonna review what you all said for the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire last time, and you can choose to, add to your answers, or you can say like, screw that answer, I don't like it anymore. I mean, actually you can't erase answers from the record, but you can like add to them or like give new answers if you want. Or you could also just stick with what you already had if you're like, I really stand by that. So I'm going to go Nani first. I'm going to do all three of them. And so just tell me your new answers if you have one, or not. Okay. Question number one, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like? Do you want me to tell you what you said before?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Before you said James Earl Jones.
I stick to that. I definitely stick to that.
Nice.
It is 3 words.
It is,
Yeah.
And what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about? You said the thought process, methods, and approaches to scoring new Star Wars media in the post-John Williams era.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting with all the new media that's coming out now with all the Disney Plus shows and everything. I think it's still very relevant. So I would like to know what the composers are thinking when they do post-John Williams stuff. So
yeah,
stick to that too.
That was a good answer. And third, what is a score or soundtrack you're fond of besides anything Star Wars? You said Atonement, composed by Dario Marianelli.
It's amazing. Yes, still. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that was easy. Do you want to add another score or soundtrack?
I think the original Batman will stick with me forever. And
which one? Composed
Tim Burton ones.
That
was on Danny Elfman.
Oh, Danny Elfman.
I love anything by Danny Elfman, actually. So
cool.
Did you see his performance at Coachella?
No,
I did not know. I saw a couple of clips, and I did not know that he went to the gym and that he had that many tattoos. So also I see him like shirtless with an electric guitar. I'm like, holy crap! I did not know Danny Elfman was like this cool. So kudos to him for staying.
He was a rock star before he was a composer.
I did not know that. So like,
I did not know that.
Yeah. He was in a band called Oingo Boingo.
that's really interesting somehow in the Star Wars connection kind of way, because there is a creature in the Jedi Fallen Order game that has a name very similar to that. And I'm going to look it up real quick
Oh,
now because
really?
it will be anticlimactic if I don't say it.
Oh, that's funny. That would be funny if it's a nod to Oingo Boingo. But yeah, when I saw Danny Elfman at the Hollywood Bowl a few years ago, performing Nightmare Before Christmas, the encore of that show was like Oingo Boingo. I was like, whoa.
What?
Yeah, he I think he had like some of his old bandmates. Like, I guess he was performing like hits from Oingo Boingo, which
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just looked it up, and the creature is called Ogdo Bogdo.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Interesting.
More coincidences.
Yeah, right. All right. Mo, we'll go next. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like? You said analog but magical.
Mo, I think you're mute.
Oh, I was on mute. I was gonna say I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Given that, but I'll stick with it.
Cool. No. What is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about? You said how all the sounds, especially from the original trilogy, were created.
Okay. I like.
You want to add to that?
Sure. Can you repeat the question again so I can?
That's okay. What is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about, or that you're curious about?
Okay. I am curious about what exactly they use to do the beeps and boops for the droids.
Cool. And finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars? And you said Hook and Fellowship of the Rings.
I like those.
Yeah.
That's. I guess there's not a. Well, I mean, could be a soundtrack. Let's add You Want It Darker by Leonard Cohen.
Oh, is that Leonard Cohen did a film?
No. I'm just adding like.
Is that just a random album?
A random album.
Oh wait, no. It has to be a film.
Okay.
Follow the rules.
Have to follow the rules. Okay.
Because that would open the floodgates.
They use Leonard Cohen films. So you know what? I'll stick with that for now.
Okay. All right. And finally, Gus, do you want me to read your answers first, or do you want to give new answers before I read your old answers?
Read the answers first.
Okay. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like? You said beep beep, and grrr.
Hey, I'll stick with that one.
What's something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about? You said. Oh wait. Oh no, you're the one that said how all the sounds, especially from the original trilogy, were created.
Oh.
Yeah, I think Mo and I were switched up.
I flipped.
I'm rolling with it.
We got flipped. We were like.
Mo, you said Max Rebo's band for what you want to learn more about.
Then perfect. I want to learn more about Max Rebo.
Okay.
That is a legit question.
That is a legit question.
Yeah.
And for what's a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars, you said JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
I'll still keep with that. And there's an Oingo Boingo song if we want to keep the connections. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so back to Gus. So how are all the sounds from the original trilogy were created? Is there something else you want to add to what you want to learn more about?
Yes, I think I want to add more about the director-composer relationship and like how they how they have a symbiont circle in terms of like creating like that movie and like that whole the whole process of how the composer is creating themes but also waiting for input from the director and like for the final cut of the film and all that stuff. That process I think is very interesting, and I don't think it's talked about enough. Because I think we always talk about the composer just composing in a vacuum and then like just throwing the score, but there's a lot more to it. So I would want to know how the sausage is made. That process.
Totally. That prodigious sausage. What is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars? Okay, you are the one that said Hook, composed by John Williams, and Fellowship of the Rings, composed by Howard Shore, which makes so much sense considering how many times you've brought up Fellowship of the Rings.
Right.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Do I want to add to it? I think I would add Hans Zimmer, Interstellar. I really like that score.
Cool. Well, now you have done the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire twice. You join a select special group of VIPs. No, I'm just kidding.
We are honored.
I'm not kidding.
Yes.
I'm kidding. But I appreciate you all for coming on. Where can people find Triad of the Force? And also, when can people hear you all at Celebration?
So we are Triad of the Force. I think it's allowed now. You can find us anywhere that podcasts can be found. You just search for Triad of the Force. We have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, just everywhere. Just search Triad of the Force. You'll find us. And then, Goose, I'm not sure exactly what day we're going to be on Celebration. It's a Saturday, correct?
Because Triad of the Force was selected to be on the podcast stage at Star Wars Celebration 2022 in Anaheim, and that's extremely exciting. And I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
I don't know. Is this like the first Puerto Rican representation at Star Wars Celebration or amongst podcasters? Like, I don't know any. Are there any other Star Wars podcasters coming from Puerto Rico?
That, as far as I'm aware of, no. But I could be completely wrong about it. I do know that representation has been lacking just in general at a celebration in terms of LGBTQ and like Hispanic, Black. All POCs have been underrepresented lately. So it seems like this year there's going to be a bigger variety of representations because our friends Pink Milk are also going to be there, obviously us. So there's going to be like a better pool of diverse voices there. As far as if have there been other Puerto Rican podcasters, I think we're like the only Star Wars focused ones there. So yeah. But in terms of when you can find us, you can find us every day. We'll be there Thursday to Sunday. So just say hello. We'll have stickers and stuff to hand out to everyone who finds us. But in terms of
I want a sticker. Can you give me a sticker?
You can have 2 or 3. You can have as many as you want. There might be pins. I'm still figuring that one out. But in terms of the podcast stage, we are scheduled, unless anything happens, we are scheduled to be on the podcast stage Saturday, May 28th at 11 a.m.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll have links to find Triad of the Force in the show notes, including an episode that I did with them. I did an episode with you last year about Star Wars music, and it was a great conversation.
It was great.
It was so good.
So yeah, check that out. I love tuning into your reviews of stuff. I feel like you have really good discussions that get really deep.
No, that's not true. That is not true. I did not work in a vacuum.
No, you're all, I adore you all. You can find Star Wars Music Minute on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I will also be at Star Wars Celebration, and I will be with my band batch friends, James Waterman and Justin Scheid, on Thursday. Not presenting or anything, but just hanging out. And and if you are going to Star Wars Celebration and you see me, please say hi. Like, you can tap me on the shoulder or like wave at me or something, because I'm really shy and I tend not to say hi first, if that makes sense.
100%.
So it would really, I actually would, don't feel weird about like interrupting me or whatever. It actually, usually I'm just like trying to distract myself and I appreciate someone like actually like a human being just like actually saying hi, even if I'm busy. Like then I'll know to find you later, and that we've already established connection. Okay, so now that I put that out there, hopefully it won't be as awkward as I already feel because I'm terrified to go to Star Wars Celebration. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to discuss. I'm just getting some anxieties out.
It's okay to be terrified. Just let them be.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what friends are for.
Thank you.
Safe environment.
Oh my gosh. Yes, listeners, even if I've never met you, please just say hi. It'll like make me feel comfortable to know that they're anyway. Okay, anyway, moving on. Next week we'll be talking about minutes 56 through 60 of Solo: A Star Wars Story. If you have any questions, you can tweet at me or you can send me an email at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com. You can also leave me a comlink message and I might play it on the show, or, I might answer it at the end of the season. And you can do that at starwarsmusicminute.com/comlink. Whew. With that, thank you, Triad of the Force. Thanks for listening. May the Force be with you. And talk to you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.